Since their inception in the early 20th century, musical films have risen to become one of the most exciting and popular forms of media that have ever graced our human eyes. Musicals originally came about as a way for movie companies to capitalize on the new novelty of sound in film in the late 1920s. Once filmmakers realized that they could not only capture the voices of actors live during filming, but also the sounds of musical instruments and tracks live as well, the wheels in their heads began to rapidly spin, and thus the movie musical was born. Many movie musicals were shown to the world at this time thanks to the extreme popularity and great fun times that these films invoked in audiences. Many consider The Jazz Singer to be the first of this great genre of film. While we're on it, let's talk about the genre itself for a moment. One of the great and wonderful things about a film being part of a genre is that the genre itself will, in most cases, serve as a blueprint for the film. Any director who has the skill and knows what they are doing will be able to completely build their musical around this idea of what a musical should be, while still fooling the audience into thinking that the musical is fresh and new, when the reality is that the director just changed the names of the characters and the locations that the characters are in. This would have been much easier in the early days of the genre, as all of the major tropes that the genre is now known for would not have been established yet like they are in our modern times. I believe that this is a blessing and a curse, because now modern audiences are too smart for studios to just use classic movie tropes and then wow audiences and make millions of dollars. But on the other hand, this has paved the way for the most complex, interesting, profound, and exciting musicals that we have ever seen. It's amazing to think that we've gone from such a happy-go-lucky musical like Singing in the Rain all the way to Rent, which deals with such a profound and impactful real-world topic. Despite how far movie musicals have come in terms of quality, they have not completely left behind the things that made the genre so popular in the first place. And that is exactly what this audio essay is about. In this essay, I will be discussing the great parallels that exist between The Wizard of Oz, The Sound of Music, and The Greatest Showman, as well as the things that help separate them from others and pay homage to the films that came before. The Wizard of Oz follows Dorothy, a young girl from Kansas who, along with her house and dog, gets swept up in a tornado and gets transported to a magical wonderland known as the Land of Oz. While she is there, she encounters all different kinds of people and creatures and is given the task of going to the Emerald City so that she can meet the Wizard of Oz, who will then tell her how she can get back home to Kansas. When first arriving in Oz, Dorothy lands in the town of Munchkinland and learns that her house has crushed one of the wicked witches to death. Dorothy takes the ruby slippers that the witch was wearing and is hailed as a hero. All of the Munchkins sing and properly welcome Dorothy to the Munchkinland before the Wicked Witch of the West arrives and tells Dorothy that she is going to get her, in reference to killing Dorothy. Right after, Dorothy begins her journey to the Emerald City along the yellow brick road and meets her companions. First, she meets the Scarecrow, who she helps down from his post. Then she meets the Tin Man and helps him remove his rust so that he can move again. And finally they meet the Cowardly Lion, who pretends to be big and brave but really is a scaredy cat of the highest degree. They all travel together to the Emerald City, where they are given the royal treatment before they finally meet the wizard, who tells them that he will not send Dorothy home until she and her companions kill the Wicked Witch of the West. Through a bunch of shenanigans, the group is able to kill the Wicked Witch, and they once again return to the Emerald City as heroes. They confront the wizard and ask for their promised rewards, but the wizard tries to back out of the deal. The heroes then discover that the wizard is actually just a regular man using machines from behind a curtain. He finally gives them their rewards, and then is about to help Dorothy home when her dog Toto causes her to miss her chance. Without hope, once again, Dorothy wonders how she will get home now. This is when the good witch of the land appears and tells Dorothy that in order to get home, all that she needs to do is click her heels together 3 times and say, "There's no place like home." After doing this, Dorothy wakes up in her bed and realizes that the whole journey was just a dream. Or was it? The things that captivated audiences about this movie are the amazing, vibrant characters, the beautiful fantasy landscapes, the music and songs, and the magical and suspenseful storyline. When you combine all of these elements together, you not only get The Wizard of Oz, but you also get many of the other movie musicals of this time period. Many of the early movie musicals utilized things that could be described as cocaine for audiences. These tactics included wide sweeping camera shots that captured many actors all at once in their dance number, as well as the grandness of the sets themselves. When Dorothy first lands in Munchkinland and the camera pans out and we see the color come through, that is an amazing scene that stands up high even when it's put up against scenes from modern films. The characters of the film are exciting and animated with gestures that perfectly match the style of the film. The Wicked Witch of the West actually feels evil when she speaks. The music is maybe the most important part of all of this, as it is the thing that decided whether or not this movie is a musical. This movie features the 2 catchiest songs of the time period with Over the Rainbow and Follow the Yellow Brick Road. It doesn't get any more iconic than that. The Sound of Music follows Maria, a free-spirited young Austrian woman studying to become a nun at Nonnberg Abbey in Salzburg in 1938. Her youthful enthusiasm and lack of discipline cause some concern. The Mother Abbess sends Maria to the villa of retired naval officer Captain George von Trapp to be governess to his 7 children, Liesel, Friedrich, Louisa, Kurt, Brigitte, Marta, and Gretel. The captain has been raising his children alone using strict military discipline following the death of his wife. Although the children misbehave at first, Maria responds with kindness and patience, and soon the children come to trust and respect her. While the captain is away in Vienna, Maria makes play clothes for the children from drapes which are to be changed. She takes them around Salzburg and the surrounding mountains, and she teaches them how to sing. When the captain returns to the villa with Baroness Elsa Schrader, a wealthy socialite, and their mutual friend, Uncle Max Deitweiler, they are greeted by Maria and the children returning from a boat ride on the lake that continues when their boat overturns. Displeased by his children's clothes and activities, and Maria's impassioned appeal that he get closer to his children, the captain orders her to return to the abbey. Just then he hears singing coming from inside the house and is astonished to see his children singing for the Baroness. Filled with emotion, the captain joins the children, singing for the first time in years. He apologizes to Maria and asks her to stay. Impressed by the children singing, Max proposes he enter them in the upcoming Salzburg festival, but the suggestion is immediately rejected by the captain as he does not allow his children to sing in public. He does agree, however, to organize a grand party at the villa. The night of the party, while guests in formal attire waltz in the ballroom, Maria and the children look on from the garden terrace when the captain notices Maria teaching Kurt the traditional Landler folk dance. He steps in and partners Maria in a graceful performance, culminating in a close embrace. Confused about her feelings, Maria blushes and breaks away. Later, the Baroness, who noticed the captain's attraction to Maria, hides her jealousy by indirectly convincing Maria that she must return to the abbey. Back at the abbey, when Mother Abbess learns that Maria has stayed in seclusion to avoid her feelings for the captain, she encourages her to return to the villa to look for her life. After Maria returns to the villa, she learns about the captain's engagement to the Baroness and agrees to stay until they find a replacement governess. The captain's feelings for Maria, however, have not changed, and after breaking off his engagement, the captain marries Maria. While they are on their honeymoon, Max enters the children in the Salzburg festival against their father's wishes. When they learn that Austria has been annexed by the Third Reich in Anschluss, the couple return to their home, where a telegram awaits informing the captain that he must report to the German naval base at Bremerhaven to accept a commission in the German Navy. Strongly opposed to the Nazis and the Anschluss, the captain tells his family they must leave Austria immediately. That night, the Von Trapp family attempt to flee Switzerland, but they are stopped by a group of brown shirts waiting outside the villa. When questioned by Gauleiter Hans Zeller, the captain maintains they are headed to the Salzburg festival to perform. Zeller insists on escorting them to the festival, after which his men will accompany the captain to Bremerhaven. Later that night, at the festival, during their final number, the Von Trapp family slip away and seek shelter at the nearby abbey, where Mother Abbess hides them in the cemetery crypt. Brown shirts soon arrive and search the abbey, but the family is able to escape using the caretaker's car. When the soldiers attempt to pursue, they discover their cars will not start as 2 nuns have removed parts of the engines. The next morning, after driving to the Swiss border, the Von Trapp family makes their way on foot across the frontier into Switzerland to safety and freedom. The Sound of Music had plenty of time to learn from the failures and successes from the 40 years of musical films that came before. The music of the movie is unquestionably the most iconic part of the movie, as is the case with all musicals. Julie Andrews' opening number in the film is always the first one that I think of when I think of the film. This is an example of great writing and marketing on the production team's part, and it works incredibly well, all the way up to this day. The next song that most people probably think about is Edelweiss. Edelweiss reached a relatively high peak on the music charts after the film's release in 1965 and went on to have a life of its own, with many other artists releasing their own versions of the song. Other legendary songs from the movie are Do Re Mi, 16 going on 17, and So Long Farewell. When you get past the painfully happy and optimistic songs that are littered throughout the entire film, you begin to see the actual story of the film and realize that the film is actually good beyond the songs. Where The Wizard of Oz utilized its fantasy setting and overly animated and exciting characters, The Sound of Music utilized its much more realistic characters and more grounded setting to tell a very true-to-life and almost too real story at times. Anytime you add in the Nazis as the villains in your story, or add the main characters having to flee because of World War II, then you know that shit is real. The Sound of Music is a classic, just as The Wizard of Oz. but it became a classic through the different means that I have just discussed. The Greatest Showman opens with Phineas Taylor, P.T. Barnum, joining his circus troupe in a song. Playing to an enthusiastic crowd as he and his performers put on a dazzling show, we then cut to Barnum as a young boy in the 1800s, working with his Taylor father, Philo. They arrive at the home of Mr. Hallett and his daughter, Charity. P.T. makes Charity laugh and spit out her tea, prompting her father to smack him across the face and forbid him from ever going near her. Regardless, P.T. and Charity spend time together and develop a close friendship in song. Even as Charity is forced to go to a finishing school, they write letters to each other and eventually reunite as adults before Barnum proposes to Charity. Barnum works for a trading company until his boss tells everyone that they are shutting the company down due to bankruptcy after the trading vessels have sunk to the bottom of the ocean. Barnum goes home to Charity and their daughters, Caroline and Helen. He brings home a spinning lamp or wishing machine for Caroline's birthday. Charity and the girls all make wishes, and Barnum hatches an idea. Barnum goes to the bank for a $10,000 loan and uses the deed to the sunken trading vessels as collateral. With the money, he opens up a museum devoted to oddities because he thinks people are fascinated with things like that. The museum fails to attract business, and most people reject the idea. Barnum then goes around town searching for unique individuals. Among them are a dwarf named Charles Stratton, a bearded woman named Letty Lutz, an obese man called Lord of Leeds, a hair-covered man referred to as Dog Boy, and an 8-foot-tall man. Although initially viewed as freaks, Barnum manages to get them all to put on a musical number of shows that win over crowds every night. One who remains unimpressed is critic James Gordon Bennett. Despite his lack of interest in Barnum's show, Bennett inspires him to rename his show as P.T. Barnum's Circus. The circus starts to bring in healthy profits, leading Barnum to move his family into a luxurious mansion, as well as being able to put Caroline in a ballet school. However, she becomes discouraged when the other girls mock her for being part of a circus family. Barnum later meets a playwright named Philip Carlyle. He approaches Philip with the opportunity to join his circus, and Philip agrees on the condition that he gets 10% of the profits. The troupe is invited to England to meet Queen Victoria. She notes that Charles, the man who plays Tom Thumb, is exceptionally short, and he makes a crack that she's not so tall either. After an awkward silence, Victoria lets out a hearty laugh. Later, Barnum and Philip meet noted opera singer Jenny Lind, and they invite her to perform for the show so that she may become known worldwide. Jenny joins the show back in the States. She performs before a large crowd that includes Philip's parents, as well as Charity's. The crowd loves her, and Barnum even spots Bennett in the audience appearing to enjoy her as well. He finds himself falling for the show's trapeze artist and wheeler. After Jenny's performance, Barnum and the others gather with a party, but when the rest of the troupe wants to join the party, Barnum turns them away. Although sad at first, the troupe decides to not let this get them down, as they decide to embrace who they are. Regardless of how they are viewed, Philip tries to introduce Anne to his parents, but they disapprove of her because of her race. She leaves upset, and Philip tells his parents off for how they spoke to Anne. He goes to find her, and they express their mutual feelings for one another. Barnum goes on tour with Jenny, leaving Philip as the ringmaster of the show. Protesters continuously gather outside to harass the troupe for their physical differences. The distance proves to be hard for Charity and the girls. While celebrating their success so far, Jenny appears to develop an attraction to Barnum, but he remains faithful to Charity. Jenny gets upset and threatens to quit, but Barnum has her finish the tour. After one performance, the press snaps a photo of Jenny kissing Barnum before she ultimately quits. Philip confronts the protesters, but they refuse to leave. When they threaten him and the others, Anne's brother W.D. throws the first punch, leading to an all-out brawl between the troupe and the protesters. One of the protesters grabs a lantern and throws it at a wall, setting the theater ablaze. Barnum returns home from his tour and greets his family when he overhears about the fire. He runs toward it just as the flames consume the whole building. Philip runs inside to find Anne, but she is already coming out with W.D. Barnum runs in for Philip just as the building collapses. His daughters cry, thinking him dead, until he emerges with an unconscious Philip. He is taken to the hospital. Barnum just sits outside the remains of the theater. Bennett goes to join him, saying that the police arrested the thugs that started the fire, and while Bennett didn't enjoy Barnum's show, he feels that another critic may have called it a celebration of humanity. He then shows Barnum the newspaper, which shows Jenny kissing him at her announcement of quitting. Barnum rushes home to Charity, only to find that she's packed her bags because the bank is evicting them, but she is also unhappy over seeing the paper. Despite Barnum trying to explain himself, Barnum goes to drink at a bar. The entire troupe finds him and confronts him. Letty tells Barnum that while he may not have always done the right thing, he saw them all as more than freaks and gave them a real family and home. Barnum is encouraged to pick himself up and help the troupe get back to performing. He then runs to Charity's childhood home where the girls tell him that she's at the beach. Barnum goes to apologize for her for being obsessed with chasing fame, and she says all she wanted was the man she fell in love with. Philip, who has recovered, offers to provide his shares from profits to restart the circus. Although Barnum hesitates, Philip is adamant in being his partner with 50% of shares. Barnum restarts the show. In a tent with circus animals and the rest of the troupe, audiences turn out in droves. Barnum then decides to hand over the job of a ringmaster to Philip so that he can go and watch his girls grow up. Philip finishes the show and kisses Anne while Barnum rides an elephant to meet Charity and the girls. The film ends with Barnum and Charity watching Caroline perform in the ballet, and Barnum acknowledging that everything he ever wanted and needed is right in front of him. The Greatest Showman is the result of Hugh Jackman thinking that he can do anything he wants musically now that he has starred as Jean Valjean in 2012's Les Miserables. Don't get me wrong, this musical is as fine of a movie musical as you will ever see, and it literally had me standing up in the theater, cheering the first time that I saw it. But to be frank, the film is the prime example of what Oscar bait is. The film takes so many of the classic tropes of movie musicals and injects them into the film so often. The movie does do new and fresh things, and the concept of a musical based around the creator of a circus is a fun and interesting idea, but it's hard to deny that audiences absolutely go bananas for the classical music tropes. The use of these tropes makes the movie seem familiar and therefore causes it to give off this feeling of comfort when you watch it. The Greatest Showman is not the only film that is guilty of this tactic. In fact, you would be hard-pressed to find another film in modern times that doesn't steal a classic trope and use it for its own purposes. The Oscar bait was very obvious, but I still think that the critics were way too hard on this film, and I think that it deserved a lot of the awards that it didn't get. The Greatest Showman does a fantastic job of wowing audiences and instilling a sense of childlike wonder at nearly all points throughout the film, while still telling a gripping story about a man with a strong desire to be successful, who also happens to make a bunch of other people successful along the way. In conclusion, all three of these movies are amazing. Two of them are classics, and one is on its way to becoming a classic. All three of these movies were groundbreaking at the times of their release. The Wizard of Oz is one of the first movie musicals to ever be filmed in color. The Sound of Music is one of the first movie musicals to ever be adapted from the stage to the camera. And The Greatest Showman is breaking down barriers regarding how we view people who are different. All three of these movies do big and small things that pay homage to the past, but also push us toward the future.